obviously doing decent in school. I was not a straight A student, especially when it came to physics and chemistry. I was like straight C minus student. So if physics and chemistry are really bogging you down, don't get worried about it. But yeah, I did decent in school. I also got internships, one of which with WRAL. If you are looking to go into broadcast, look into that internship because those guys are top notch. Greg Fischel, Nate Johnson, Mike Mays, they're all phenomenal people and just ridiculous scientists. From there, I got an internship with Time Warner Cable News, and I interned with them 2 semesters, and that's where I really was able to polish my reel. Between that and Nate Johnson's broadcast class, any of you guys, have you at least heard of that class? Just raise your hand to let me know. All right, so a few people. Even if you're not going into broadcast, take the class because it's really going to teach you how to communicate the weather. Because we're all going into this field together, whether you're in academia, National Weather Service, military, or broadcast, we're all communicating this. And we all need to be on the same page in order to communicate it effectively. There's a lot of times when we're trying to get a message across, but we're doing it in a way that just confuses people. So take that class if you get around to it. So I did that, and through all of it, was getting really good advice. By the end, I applied to 133 TV stations, which is overboard, but it worked because at the time I got about 12 phone calls for interviews, and in the middle I had to start denying stations, unfortunately, because I had already signed with WCYB. So kind of cut and dry, that's how I got to where I am, and right now loving it, except for the fact that I have to work with Ricky Matthews. Kidding. It's a good gig. It's challenging, and we'll talk about the challenges that we face in the field, but for right now, that's how I got here, and just keep trucking through that tough program. So Ricky, on to you.
In a similar situation as Chris, I also went through the 4 years of great math classes, calculus, almost, well, didn't fail Calc 2, but got a D, so I had to retake it because we needed a C to get into advanced dynamics, and also DivvyQ. So honestly, wasn't very good at math, but still managed to get through the meteorology courses through support from fellow students and just kind of buckling down and doing a lot of the homeworks and in-class activities that kind of saved us at UNCC. But long story short, I applied 6 or 7 stations, not as many as Chris did, obviously, and Chris kind of helped me know that there was going to be an opening at CYB and hooked me up with his news director, and I sent an email to his chief, who I think Chris probably saw it before the news director did, and was kind of the connection that got me going there at CYB. So if anyone's ever applying to a station, make sure you email both the chief meteorologist and the news director. Maybe separately, maybe together, just depends on how the application goes, but sometimes the chief may have a little more time to look at tapes and different things than their news director will. But long story short, started working here in March as the weekend morning meteorologist. So Chris finally didn't have to do both morning and evening shift anymore. And then since then, when I graduated, I moved up here full time, and now I'm doing the weekend mornings here. Chris does evenings, and we tag team the weekend together.
Yeah, so you mentioned you started working in March. You also still went to school then. How did that work?
Yeah, it was a part-time gig, which they paid me part-time. They paid me hourly instead of salary, like a lot of meteorologists are paid when they work in television. And so I really just commuted on the weekends up to Bristol. They gave me a place to stay Friday through Sunday, and I would do on-air stuff Saturday and Sunday, and then Sunday afternoon drive home. The nice thing was my news director was very open and understanding and let me leave right after the newscast, so I was able to take off at like 8, 9 o'clock, schedule a few things for social posts through the rest of the afternoon, and then wait, everything was handled till Chris came in the afternoon. But it really was an opportunity, and sometimes situations like that come up to where you had to jump on it because they were ready to fill the position, and if I had said no, they probably would have moved to someone else if I wasn't able to do that part-time stuff before.
Okay, cool. So back to the school stuff now. I don't know if y'all have talked to each other about it, but do you know about any differences between maybe like State's meteorology program and UNCC's?
Just from what I've seen Chris do, Chris seems to have a much better understanding of forecasting sometimes coming straight out of college. Maybe he's just studies more than I do sometimes at night, much to his girlfriend's demise or something. I'm kidding, Chris. But it seems like State has a lot more different classes that maybe we don't offer. We are a smaller program, I think. But that's nice in some ways. How many students are typically in like a synoptic class, Chris or Sam?
For my class, we were about 20 people. Sam, I don't know about you guys.
So that's about the same size. So class size, it's about the same. We had a situation in the past couple of years where one of our teachers went on leave, and so mesoscale wasn't taught, and then we had another situation where another teacher went on leave after that, and so different classes weren't taught. And so I think through the years, will continue to grow. It's just I think State may be a little bit ahead at the time in terms of like classes that are offered. We are having Brad Panovich though start to teach the broadcast meteorology class at UNCC to compete with Nate a little bit, but I'm sure they'll probably teach very similarly since they're pretty good friends.
Yeah, and Ricky, kind of like you were saying, forecasting eventually becomes a big part of the curriculum. In my opinion, the curriculum at NC State is phenomenal. The way it's structured, that you start off with MEA 213, 214 with the fundamentals, and then you get into the atmospheric chemistry, the atmospheric thermodynamics, and then you start to get into the dynamics courses. Well, those dynamics courses bleed right into synoptic. It's, I mean, perfect transition. And you've got one of the top forecasters there in Dr. Lackman. Dr. Parker in mesoscale is phenomenal as well. So you really get an idea of how to forecast. And if you're going into broadcast, you need to know the how. People don't want to just watch you to say, it's going to be mostly sunny today, or it's going to be really cold tonight. You know, they want to know why. When you start introducing some of these concepts in a way that people can understand, it actually makes a difference. I have people who will come up to me and say, thank you for explaining the weather. And that's because of the background. You know, I've got Dr. Lackman and Dr. Parker, who are just phenomenal forecasters, really teaching you the nitty-gritty. And Ricky can tell you, when he looks at my forecast sheet, I write an essay a day. And I'm talking about Q vector analysis and isentropic analysis and QG theory. And I'm not patting myself on the back because, yeah, I bust a few forecasts like everybody does. But that curriculum at NC State is forecast heavy in the second half of it, and it's phenomenal. I'd go back and take those courses any day, so long as they don't have an effect on my GPA, because they're still kind of tough.
And that's a key, Chris. I think that when you get out of college, most of the time you suck at forecasting. You know, I suck at forecasting right now just because I don't have much experience. But over time, you gain experience. You realize your mistakes. You realize why you screwed up, why it didn't rain on Saturday, why it's so cloudy today and we were expecting sunshine. And trust me, in our profession, the public will let you know if you screwed up too. But, you know, that's the key, is continuing to forecast, continuing to ask questions. I still ask some of my professors all the time, hey, you know, is this what's going on here? What's the reason this is occurring? You know, stuff like that. So don't be afraid to ask your professors or talk to them, send them an email or whatever, even after you graduate or now in class. That was the big thing I think I tried to stress to our students, and I continue to stress to the students that are still at UNCC, is that don't be afraid to ask your professors questions. Just walk into their office, knock on their door. That's what they're there for. I mean, they're not there to just teach a class for an hour and a half, 2 days a week. They're there to ask questions and answer questions and be kind of a guide for you.
And to bounce off of you, Ricky, actually, what was I going to say? Well, now I got it. The whole Ricky saying that, you know, he stinks at forecasting, first off, is not true. He's actually a very good forecaster. Because especially where we are in the higher terrain, have you guys heard of cold air damming?
Yeah.
Just raise your hand. No? Okay, a few of you have. Okay, well, the kind of weather setup that we have right now is cold air damming. And I wound up feeling like a champ today because I forecast 40s for the mountains of North Carolina, which wound up happening. Meanwhile, on the other side, we're in the middle 60s in the Tri-Cities. So you start to get, after college, a better sense. And I went back and asked Dr. Lackman about some cold air damming stuff when I first started here, just because it was confusing the living crap out of me when I first started. So, yeah, ask your professors questions even after graduation because it'll help.
And comment modules. That's a big thing, too.
Well,
a lot of us.
Funny thing, though, Chris, you mentioned MEA 213 and 214. They don't exist anymore.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all combined in the MEA 215 spring semester now.
What in the world?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you guys taking in the fall semester?
I think MEA 100.
Is that the weather and climate intro or something?
Yeah.
It's like environmental science, kind of, I guess.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I lied to you. Before your time, back in my day, okay, there was this class called MEA 213, and it was fundamentals of meteorology. So once you get into MEA 215, you'll know what the crap I'm talking about.
Yeah. So speaking of classes, you guys mentioned some of the classes are pretty difficult for you. What do you think the hardest classes were you took, and like how do you think that helped you with your career and where you are now?
Synoptic meteorology, which I'm just going to throw out the number here and see if it still exists. MEA 443.
Yeah.
Okay. It's still the number. It was definitely the toughest class, definitely the most time-consuming, but the most rewarding. Again, I kind of mentioned it before that you learn nitty-gritty to forecasting from someone who's just tops in the field. So yeah, synoptic was definitely the most difficult for me.
Most difficult class, probably stats. Did it help me? No, not at all. But the best class, probably being synoptic, like Chris mentioned, because it's just the fundamentals and you learn so much. We also have a class dedicated purely to tropical weather, and that was very helpful and interesting, kind of learning different processes that go along with different tropical cyclone formation. And Dr. Matthew Easton's, who teaches at UNCC, and he's written a few papers on stuff, and so it was a really good class to take, and most of his lectures and stuff are online as well, PowerPoint-wise. So if you ever just Google his name during the fall semester, you can rip all of his PowerPoints off him and read them for yourselves.
Yeah, I definitely think synoptic definitely is a really good class. I mean, I'm only halfway through it, but the stuff I've learned from that class, I'll use the rest of my career probably.
And your professor wrote the textbook, which to me was mind-boggling, and it's an awesome book. I read it for fun now, which is something I don't like to admit, but it's great.
He has a copy here in the Weather Center.
Oh wow. So Ricky, you're at work right now, right?
Yep.
So either one of you really, just what do you do in a day at work? Like when you come in, what do you do when you first come in and all that stuff?
It depends on the day and also depends on the person. Chris likes to do a lot of forecasting sometimes when he gets in. Me personally, most of the time, my shift Monday through Wednesday is 10 to 7, and Chris's is Wednesday to Friday 10 to 7. And then we work our typical shifts on the weekends, respectively, in the mornings and evenings. But this morning, for example, I got here like 10. I started talking to our morning meteorologist, fixed a few things on one of our weather systems, fiddled around with a few different graphics, built a lot of different graphics, and a lot of stations, and we're blessed to be one of them, will allow us to do that. Chris and I technically are meteorologists / reporters, but we very rarely are asked to go out and report on stuff, which is good, in my opinion, because meteorologists sometimes don't make the best reporters, and reporting on murders and everything just isn't our style. But anyway, so building graphics, trying to think of new ways to present stuff, updating our closed captioning, updating our web, updating a little behind-the-scenes stuff that most people don't see, because Dave Dirks, our chief meteorologist, is going to be the one on air, but there's a lot of different things that we also have to do. We do a newspaper forecast, we do radio, we do web and email text, We do an app push sometimes in the mornings. Chris, what am I missing?
You're not missing much as far as the alternative forecast. You mentioned the app, you mentioned app push, newspaper, radio, website. But on top of that, Ricky and I have really kind of contributed to the social media presence, and we do a weather blog on our website, which is another one of those things that when I pitched it, I thought my news director was going to be like, yeah, right. Well, I pitched it to him, and I thought he was about to pee his pants. So I was like, okay, cool. He wound up really liking this idea that once a week we do a weather blog, and a lot of times it'll be designed towards if we've got severe weather on the way, winter weather on the way, we'll really break down the science behind it, and then we'll mention the impacts, because you can mention science all you want. In the end, people want to know how is this going to affect me. So that's something that Ricky and I have really tried to push, is the impacts in our forecasting, because we've got all these cool maps that we show, and you know, days before an event, yeah, that's great, but the day before or the day of an event, all people want to know is the impact. So Ricky and I are really kind of the guys that are building those graphics and getting them on the air, getting them on social media. But we're also trying to play the role of the station scientist, where you're not just doing weather. Every time that there's something going on in space, the International Space Station flying over is huge. You would think it's like the second coming of Christ when we mention the ISS flying over. People lose their minds over it. And we do segments on the air. We do the weather blog, social media. So if you're going into broadcast, another one of your things is that you're going to be a scientist. If you're not a reporter, you're going to be talking about the leaves changing colors, stink bug season, because around here we get stink bugs in the houses when the seasons change, earthquakes, the one time that at Virginia Tech Stadium the seismograph shook because everybody was so loud. I mean, stuff like that. You're doing more than just weather. And that's something that Ricky and I, being young guys, have really tried to capitalize on. So I guess in your every day of work, there's really not an every day. We do those background forecasts, but we also try and contribute something else on social media and on the web.
I joke sometimes that we get paid to play around on Facebook every once in a while, because it seems like we're on Facebook almost all day long updating stuff and posting stuff, but we get paid for it, so it's kind of nice.
So Ricky, you said you could show us graphics on your computer at the news station there.
We can try.
You had your other computer up here.
Max wants to work. We do it on there. That's all right. Let me switch the input here and see if I can't get it to come up.
You're watching one now.
We're going to use this camera because the other camera doesn't want to work, but this is our new weather center, which we just debuted a couple weeks ago, and our graphic system, which is reversed because of how the camera's set up. But our graphic system is WSI Max, which is the only weather system that WSI now puts out. They used to have one called Weather Central, and then they combined the two, and now it's WSI Max together. There's another pretty popular one out there, Barron's system, that is separated into the Omni system and Viper system. Viper is their Radar 1, Omni is their operating system. And so you may see that one mentioned a lot if you ever move into broadcast, or I just talk to a few different meteorologists around the area. But basically, it's our way to ingest everything. This is what the display looks like. It's pretty user-friendly compared to Barron's system, in my opinion. I've been using it several different internships over the years. Chris has been able to get the hang of it pretty quickly, and even our chief, who's been here 27 years, has gotten the hang of it pretty quickly. And Dave sometimes isn't the most computer-friendly person, but he's learned to master it, and we've rolled with it ever since. So
So are you able to walk around, or?
Yeah, I can kind of walk around. Let's see if I can't take this camera and show you just our whole center. So there's like our quad wall stuff, which is where our reporters and us stand in front of sometimes. Those columns will turn blue or red. Right now, when you hit them with lights and cameras, they look kind of white or purplish because we haven't fixed the colors inside of them yet. There's our backdrop. Computer on the left is for, I guess it'd be your left there, is just another like work computer. Then we've got the computer to the right there, which helps run our crawl system, our render for all social media stuff, the other crawl system that goes upstairs. Next to that is a camera setup and just another work computer, and then our secondary weather graphics computer, which is currently showing the Hangout up there, is just another graphics system. We can do every single thing we can on our Graphics 1 system on our Graphics 2 system, which is nice when you have severe weather because both of us can work at the same time. Then there's another workstation down here, and over there is our WeatherBug system with all of our camera networks across the area and weather stations, which we have there's got to be at least 70 different schools in our area that have weather stations. A lot of them don't work anymore because they're older systems and older weather stations, but they're very valuable in terms of like mesoscale weather, and when thunderstorms are rolling through, you're able to pull them up because they update a lot quicker than the ASOS stations and the other stations do, so they come in handy. Chris, am I missing anything?
Only other thing maybe is the green screen. For those of you that don't know, there's green screen there. We don't actually have maps behind us, but I'm pretty sure you guys already knew that.
All right, so I guess most people have seen, kind of what your job's like and how you got there. So for people who might want to go into broadcast, what do you recommend, or like any tips or anything in order to make you better qualified to get a broadcast meteorology job?
Internships. That's the name of the game, is internships. And a lot of times internships aren't posted. Like, you don't know they exist. Brad Panovich has never put up an internship opening at a station and been like, hey, you can come work here as an intern. I just asked him. And actually, I kind of bugged him, and then eventually he was like, hey, do you want an internship? Because I'd been down there 3 times before, and it just worked out. And so I ended up getting that internship. Did one at News Channel 3. That one was posted. And then did one at Time Warner Cable News in Charlotte that was also posted. But a lot of times they're not, and that's the key, is just finding them, making connections, NWA conference, AMS conference, meeting people. Following people on Twitter is a big thing that I thought helped because I learned people's names. I knew who they were. Heck, I met Chris through Twitter, so it got me a job eventually. So looks like I was doing something right.
Yeah, to tag off of that, I mean, you guys, if you're wanting to go into broadcast, you really have no excuse. You've got the top TV station in Raleigh right across the street, literally right across the street from you. Internships are huge because that's where you get to market yourself and you get to know people. Without those internships, I don't have a job, period. I mean, those guys went to bat for me when our executive producer, who was hiring me, called and said, hey, do you know this kid? Is he an idiot or is he worth it? And I guess they didn't think I was an idiot, so that's good. It's more about who you know, not necessarily what you know when it comes to this. So getting those internships, doing the broadcast class, and just getting as many reps in front of the green screen as possible. You walk into that internship, the first thing that you should do is ask, when can I get on the green screen? I waited way too long at WRAL. I was sitting there writing reports and looking at climate data, and that's all great. But in the end, people want to see someone who's polished on the green screen. So definitely make sure that you're going outside of your comfort zone, because it is scary at first. So doing that, taking the broadcast class, and just making sure that you understand the science of what you're studying. Don't just go into this so that you can be pretty face on TV. Actually understand what you're doing, because what you're doing impacts people's everyday life. When it comes to a sunny day, or if there's a tornado barreling down on somebody's neighborhood. Also, geography. Get to know your geography because that's absolutely imperative. Not only does it make you sound more credible, that even when we're talking about tropical systems, if I can tell you that I know about the high terrain in Haiti and Dominican Republic, all of a sudden my meteorology credibility goes through the roof. Now people are like, wow, this guy actually knows that. That's something that Ricky taught me, that geography is important even outside of where you cover. Get around, drive around. If you guys are not from Raleigh, get around and drive, because I know a lot of you want to keep your friends safe. If there's severe weather, tell them, if you know your area, then you are top notch. If there's geography classes that are offered, take them. That's only going to help you. And take some other science-related classes, geology, astronomy, because like I said, when you get into a station, you're a station scientist. You're not just the weather guy or weather girl.
And a few things off of that, Chris. When you do stuff at the station for your internships, do stuff that's sometimes not on green screen too. Do a shot at the desk, do a shot outside, because you're going to want a variety of different shots. Do a reporting package. That's probably key, because my news director asked me when we did my interview, do you have any reporting experience? And I had a little bit, admittedly probably not as much as I may have played it off as, but you got to say yes, and you need to have that experience. And even if you don't, you can learn it pretty quickly once you get hired somewhere. I've gone out with 2 of our reporters on stories and learned a lot of stuff, just to kind of see how they do it. And I pick up stuff, pretty quickly in terms of like figuring out how to shoot this story, how to edit it together, and everything else. But that, there was something else I was going to mention, Chris. Yeah, going off of, well, we can forget about it. But yeah, just different types of shots are really important in the reporting thing too.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all I have to ask you. So I'm going to see if anyone has any questions. I know Brandon had a question. So.
All right. I always hear the horror stories of people emailing or calling in the station, and it doesn't just happen in broadcast, it happens in other places. But what's the worst, I'd say, nasty email or call you guys have received?
I was just talking about this the other day. Luckily, we live in an area where people are very nice. In fact, I had a lady offer for me to have dinner with her family one night. I mean, people are just incredibly kind around here. But then, I mean, there's always that 1 to 5% of people who can just be, I'm just going to say it, they can be asses. And this one woman was definitely that. So she emailed me one day, and I put up a graphic, and the banner on the graphic was "Find the cold front," because it was completely obvious where the cold front was. It was like 70s ahead of it and 40s behind it. It was just an awesome looking graphic. And I put it on air, and I made a little joke about it, and so she emailed me afterwards with this monologue. She wrote a freaking Harry Potter novel. How you're not supposed to be joking about the weather. The weather isn't a joke. Me and all my friends turn off the TV as soon as we see your face on there. Maybe you should go back to school and reconsider what you do for a living, because clearly weather isn't made for you. This is an effing joke. You should be a comedian. And so I wrote back to her. I did the big boy thing. And I wrote back to her and I said, first off, thank you for watching. And I said, secondly, I'm open to criticism, but I'm not open to people being rude. And I just said right off the bat, I have an incredible passion for what I do. I can show you the certificate that shows that I have a bachelor's degree in meteorology if you would like. And I said, next time if you have constructive criticism, I would appreciate you taking my human feelings into account. Well, then she writes back, apologizing up and down, saying that the passion for what you do is evident. I didn't mean anything rude by it. And I was like, you called me an effing joke. You meant to be rude. But I mean, that's the one that sticks out. So it's not like there's so many that have really come at me. And yeah, people have called me a nerd, and I say thank you because I am a nerd, and I know that. But yeah, I think that's the worst one I've ever gotten.
People really don't like when you mispronounce your noun, so make sure you learn how to say cities, because if you say it wrong one day, you fortunately won't have to listen to the call, but the poor reporter upstairs will have to listen to the call, because I said Abingdon wrong one day on air, and Cassandra upstairs got cursed out for a good 5 minutes from this guy who was just so pissed that I said his city wrong. The first day on air, I had someone call me a goober. That was funny. They wanted Chris back. But apparently she's just a jerk sometimes, and that's what. A lot of people who comment are, if you've ever had a moment where you're really pissed at someone, but then 5 minutes later, you know, you're best friends with them again, you are perfectly calm. That's what a lot of people do. They just don't wait that 5 minutes before they send that friendly little email or get that phone call to the station. What else? What you wear is a big thing. Chris and I usually don't have to put up with that as much as our female reporters and anchors do. One guy did comment on my makeup once, though, and granted, he had a right to, because the lighting was bad and I missed a spot on my makeup that morning, and I looked uglier than usual. But he called me out for it, and it was funny to me because it puts you back in your place sometimes. If you come into this job thinking you've got a big ego and you're hot stuff, as James Spans likes to say, put all those emails and the mean emails in a folder sometime, and you'll realize that not everyone loves you. And there's some people out there who will tell you it pretty clearly. I probably just haven't been around long enough and haven't broken into Jeopardy or Days of Our Lives or any of the other shows that people usually get riled up about, like Chris has sometimes. You know, but I'm sure my day is coming for more angry emails.
Yeah, we have a station policy that whenever there's a severe thunderstorm warning, we break in to programming. It's just a brand that we follow. Ricky and I don't necessarily agree with it, but there's sometimes when you have a job and you have to do what the boss man says because he pays your paycheck. We've cut into programming multiple times, and we have a elderly population here that loves their Wheel of Fortune and they love their Jeopardy. And they don't care if an F5 tornado is coming down on their house, they want to know what the final answer to Double Jeopardy or whatever is. And they will rip you a new one. Again, calling you, someone called me a sorry excuse for a human being, and I just told them on the phone, I said, sir, this is what I got to follow, and if you have nothing nice to say, then this phone call is over. He cursed at me, and he hung up, and I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, you get some of that when you break into programming. Trying to think of what else. If you cover someone's town on a map, they will let you know. I had one guy call saying that he wanted to speak to that Yankee punk Chris Michaels. And I said, this is Chris Michaels. Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. I want to talk to him. I said, okay, sir, what can I help you with? Tell him to get his ass off of my town. And I said, okay, sir, you're talking to Chris Michaels. He goes, yeah, that's the kid I'm talking about. I said, no, sir, you are talking to him. If you have anything wrong, you can report it to me. And then all of a sudden he said, oh, sorry, and hung up. I was like, that is going to live with me throughout the rest of my career.
People hide behind, you know, the internet bully thing is so alive in our business. They hide behind their keyboard, and a lot of times if you call them out for it or if you comment back, they'll just apologize and be the nicest person on the planet. But in that little moment, they think they're the biggest person on the planet and can take anyone on. So.
But don't get us wrong. We're not trying to talk crap about our viewers. I just had a guy bring by deer meat to the studio because he said that he appreciated the job I was doing or something. So he hunted deer and he gave me food for the week. So there's a lot of nice people too.
There's many more nice people than mean people, yeah.
All right. Anyone else have any questions to ask them while they're here?
Chris, why don't we comment a little bit about kind of the misconceptions sometimes of our career. I'll comment on salaries. You're not going to make three figures. You're probably not going to make over 50,000. you're likely not going to make over 30,000 in your first job. That's just the way it is. Station in Iowa was paying 18,000 for a job. Some stations that are like in the 50s will pay higher, but a lot of stations will try and lowball you as low as they can go. And that's just the way it is today. And so the days of almost making a livable wage as an entry-level meteorologist are almost done for. There's a lot of cost cutting and a lot of trying to get in as low as you can for everyone. So if you apply to somewhere and they ask you a number, I'd always say 1,000 or 2,000 higher than what you think you're actually going to get from them. The number I used when I first started applying to places was 25 to 28. I think I actually said 26 to 28 was the number I gave. And so it worked out, and they got within that range, but that's about the numbers you're going to be playing with.
There's the money factor, and I mean, it's just kind of like any line of work. Don't expect an ideal schedule. There's no such thing as 9 to 5. There have been many nights before Ricky got to the station where I had a sleeping bag and a change of clothes, and I was sleeping at the station and waking up the next morning to do the next newscast. Really less than ideal, and you don't get much sleep that way, but expect to work weekends. Out of college, there's very few people who get out of college and get a Monday through Friday gig, and if you do, you're most likely doing mornings, which is you're waking up at 1:30 in the morning, going into work from 3 until 12:30, which I love that shift. If I could have that 5 days a week, I'd take it right now. But yeah, expect to work weekends. It's not all bad because you get to fill in a lot. I get to fill in for my chief now, and I get to fill in for the morning guy, as does Ricky. And Ricky gets to fill in on weekend evenings. So you get a lot of exposure. You get a ton of reps at the green screen. And expect to work in a small market. You're not going to be working in New York City. You're not going to be working in Raleigh. You're going to be working in these kind of small markets. For Ricky and I to be top 100 coming out of school, that's good. Some of the stations I was talking to were market 178, Alexandria, Louisiana. I said, I have no idea where the hell this place is. Wichita Falls, Texas, Augusta, Georgia, Bowling Green, Kentucky. I mean, small markets. So you're not going to get into the big city yet. But expect to sign about a 2-year contract. You're not going to be very rich, but you are going to get paid in experience, which is important. Unfortunately, we've kind of grown up in a generation where money is largely talked about. I mean, you watch SportsCenter one day and you hear the numbers getting thrown at some of these athletes, and it makes you want to throw up. But just truck through it, and after 2 years, you take that next step, then just kind of earn your stripes. But I would not trade what I do for anything. This is an incredible field, and you really get to impact people and work with people who are like family. Ricky and I met on Twitter, but we're good friends now because we've been hunkered in that weather center before during some tough weather.
I would also say don't sign a 3-year contract. Just don't. Unless they're really giving you what you want and it happens to be where you want to be, don't sign a 3-year contract. And that's just not coming from me. That's coming from mentors over the years. That's coming from people who have been here much longer than I have. And ask people. When, Chris and our current news director called me and said, hey, we were going to offer you this position, first person I called was Brad Panovich. And I asked him some questions because he's been the person that, I've talked to and has been my mentor over the years. So ask your mentor, ask the people who you've done internships with, whether they think it's a good idea, and go for your gut half the time.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys coming. Guess we learned a lot of cool stuff. There's everyone. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Hopefully talk to you guys later.
And Sam, if anyone ever wants to contact us, Chris and I are always on Twitter. Most of you probably already know Chris's contact. But you can send me an email, rmatthews, 2 T's at WCYB.com. And Chris, I'm sure, can plug his social accounts too.
Yeah, cmichaels at WCYB.com. That's my email. Facebook, Chris Michaels, WCYB. And Twitter, at WCYB_Michaels. Especially since you guys are going through the same curriculum that I've gone through, let's talk. I want to help. It's a fantastic journey. I would give anything to go back to NC State and retake some of those classes. I mean, honestly, they make you want to pull your hair out sometimes, but I'd be more than willing to help. If you have any questions as far as broadcast, weather service, anything, just shoot us some messages. We'll help you out.
And like Chris said, even if it's not in broadcast, we've met people at conferences over the years. A great contact is Bruce Thomas from Midland Radio or Ken Carey. Those guys know like everyone in the world. So if you want to get into anything, shoot me a message and I can shoot you their contact information. I know people in insurance weather. There's so many different private sector jobs that you can do. AccuWeather, there's some contacts I know there. So there's a lot of different people who we can try and hook you up with.
And if you guys missed their contact information, I'll get that written down from them and I'll make a post about it in the meteorology group.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. I'll see you guys later.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.